What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fresh Podcast, where we bring everything fresh in entertainment. And today we have a very special podcast for you. It is that time of year. It is time for our best games of 2023. And join with me this time. I got the whole crew. I got the whole cast. First starting out, we got Randy. Randy, how you doing?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic, and I can't wait to see what comes out next year in 2024.
And we will find out about that later in the show. But first off, we got to introduce the rest of the crew. And next on the list is Seth. Seth, how you doing?
I'm excited. I'm doing pretty well. Ready to talk about our fresh awards. Keeping it on brand.
Yes, exactly. We're going to be keeping it fresh. And the best person to keep it fresh is the last and very much not least member, Robert. Robert, how are we doing?
I was doing great until I learned we were talking about Game of the Year instead of Guilty Gear lore.
I mean, my vote is on Guilty Gear lore too, but someone hates it for some reason. Seth. Anyway.
Are we just never going to make it through a podcast without like an inside joke that no one's going to get?
Nope. Anyway, so yes, we are going to be talking about not only our favorite games that came out in 2023, but also our favorite games that didn't come out this year, but were new to us. We'll also be talking about our biggest surprise, something we weren't really expecting to be as amazing as it is. But this year is not all sunshine and rainbows, because we'll also be talking about our biggest disappointments. Not necessarily games that were bad, but just didn't meet our expectations or didn't quite live up to the hype. And then finally, we will finish off with the most anticipated games for next year. And stay tuned after that, because we got one more little thing to talk about, but you got to find out about that at the end. So, before we get started, I want to give a thank you to everyone listening and for your support on at the time of recording this podcast, the most recent video, which was the Lies of P tier list that I did with me and Seth. Seth, thank you for capturing so much footage for that. That took a minute to edit, but it seems like our listeners and watchers on YouTube very much enjoyed that video. So, thank you for being on that podcast. I think it turned out really well.
No problem. They can see me constantly get crushed by bosses over and over, and I hope they get to appreciate that.
It was your specific request, because I did think about this, but you specifically requested for me to leave the desk in. So I did.
I wanted to be authentic.
I'm not going to let a certain point editing, because it's a lot of footage to go through. The way I would mark it would be by the desk, so I almost certainly every time you died was put in the podcast. I don't think I skipped one, because that's how I would mark it.
I'm glad you took my request in. I want to prove that I am not a good player. I'm a piece of shit who managed to 100% this game by brute force.
Hey, you had some cool moments in there, especially with the sword. All right, I left in the cool moments too.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But enough about podcast of years past or 2 weeks past. We are now talking about this past year and these past games. So let's start this with the big one. What was everyone's favorite game of 2023? Now, I pretty much know all of your alls, but I think we probably should get the very big one out of the way, because it was not only one of our favorite games, but the people's favorite game. So, Randy, what was your game of 2023?
Dude, Baldur's Gate 3.
Never heard of it.
Baldur's Gate 3? Never heard of it. Why wasn't it Spider-Man?
Why was it Spider-Man? Anyway.
Oh, so you guys have also been getting those TikToks too. Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, but every time I get one of those is
say
another one of someone calling that person an idiot. So it balances out.
Yeah.
Anyway.
To be fair, Spider-Man, still a good game.
Yes.
But it ain't no Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, and it's also, if you ever thought it was going to be Game of the Year, you're delusional, bruh. If it wasn't going to be Baldur's Gate 3, it was going to be Tears of the Kingdom or Alan Wake 2. So people are fucking
sucked it, yeah.
Yeah, so people are out of their fucking gourd if they
the
thought
only people
Spider-Man
that say
2 was
that
going to win it.
are the people that play 3 games a year. Whatever the newest COD is, Spider-Man
2K.
and 2K. Yeah, you said before I could finish it was 2K.
I also have seen that TikTok.
No Madden?
No madams indeed, Robert.
Anyway.
Yeah, Randy, sorry.
Baldur's Gate.
Continue.
I know I put it as a fresh pick, I think, right when it came out. Or I didn't get it right when it came out. I got it, like, I think maybe 2 weeks after or something like that. But it was pretty close to when it came out. If my Steam playtime is anything to go by it, I think last time we checked in, I don't think this was on the podcast, but I was at 315 hours, I think. I'm looking at it now. I'm at 384. And I still have at least, at minimum, one more playthrough once crossplay gets added.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's going to be about another 100 hours. And I think it's well spent, in my opinion. If you just want value for dollar also, it's instead of how most new games are kind of like $70 at this point now, it's $60. And like I said, I've put almost 400 hours in it. And I've only done, well, this is my third playthrough. I have a fourth one, but we'll see if it ever gets finished with me and my boyfriend. But in regards to like why I think this won Game of the Year, and it's my Game of the Year, is that I feel like it just swept the the landscape because one, wow, who would have guessed pretty much a finished product coming out in the year of our Lord 2023. That's not live service this. We'll patch it in an update to fix like insane glitching and stuff like that. Not to say that this game hasn't had patches or that it didn't have glitches at all. Like there were some things, but most of what I've seen, it's just been like the occasional crash fix. And then they just came out with patch 5 pretty much right before the Game Awards, adding Honor Mode, which is something they had in Divinity Original Sin 2. I don't know if they had it in the first one, but I know they had it in the second one.
They had it in the first one as well.
Yeah. Okay. So then, I guess now I have 2 more playthroughs because I need to do an Honor Mode run. So,
You'll play it through the game more than twice, Randy. I'm gonna just let you know that, by the way. You'll definitely keep playing this game.
Yeah. But basically, it's a twist on. I guess it's not a twist. It's just a standard C RPG, so computer RPG, using D&D rules. Which I mean, I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you've probably heard of D&D, because I assume you're a nerd, just like all of us.
Randy, actually, the only
On
people that
someone who's not heard of D&D.
Randy,
Also fair.
The only people that listen to our podcast are super cool and rad people, by the way. But they do know what D&D
Hey.
is.
Those two things are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, exactly.
You could be a super rad cool nerd.
Yeah, I'm just
Anyway.
letting you know that, in case you didn't know already. We love you, audience. I don't pander.
Anyway, I think that was one of the big reasons that this game ended up being real successful. One, the story is really good. Your choices actually matter in comparison to some other games. And I feel like the companions that you do have, you do genuinely care about them. Or at least you care about like maybe the main core that you travel around with, and maybe you leave some at camp. But even then, like, you'll come back to camp and like all of the characters you will have an opinion about. I feel like there's not a companion character that you're just like, yeah, I mean, they're there. I feel like all the companions you have an opinion about, whether it be you really like them or you really fucking hate them. And I think that's a good thing. That's a sign of like really good writing and good performances. To actually have an opinion about your companions. But that's like I said, we're trying to. I know we have a lot to get through, so I'm gonna keep it short to where it's solid gameplay. I like the turn base. There's so many like different ways to solve problems because it's just like actual tabletop, and the companions are great. Like, what more do you want?
Yeah, no, and the fact that like there's this huge expansive like game and there's a million different things and on top of all of that, you can play with your friends. Like, it is it is such a love letter to people who not only like D&D, but people just like this fantasy genre. Period. It really is like this could have come out in almost any year, and this game would have been a contender for Game of the Year. It's a marvel of what they've done. It's even got me to play it, which I'm slowly getting more into like turn-based RPGs and more like this kind of style of games. But it's got me to start playing, and whenever it gets cross-play, like all four of us have already talked about, like we're definitely doing a thing together, and we're already talking about like, ooh, I want to be this character. I want to be this class and try to. Ooh, when I play, I want to be like try to make my character look like an anime character or Hellboy or someone else. Like, and there's so much creativity from it that like, yeah, this game is easily like Game of the Year. It's like a marvel to be well done, and it like very much deserves all the praise that like people have been giving it. Talk to anyone about have they played Baldur's Gate yet or know what it is, and like anyone that's actually taken the time to put their hands on the game loves it. Like they have fallen in love with it. I'm super early in my playthrough, but I can already see like, all right, I'm invested enough where I want to see it going, and I'm sure I'll like the game, given that everyone else has given it like 5 million stars if they could. So no shock that this game has been doing well. We'll go quickly just because I know both of you have also kind of started your playthrough. Seth, Robert, any thoughts on Baldur's Gate 3?
I haven't seen a lot of it, but I'm really happy to see how much Larian's continued to support the game after launch.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's something that came out in early access, so like the first couple acts of the game ran really well, and then there was like some issues of Act 3, but they've been going in and like cleaning those up too. It's nice to see the community support, adding more stuff like Randy mentioned, the honor mode. I think a lot of that stuff is going to help with the longevity of the game, like how it's gone so long, plus just it apparently being a really fun game with friends.
Mm-hmm.
That aspect alone has kind of made me more interested, just kind of making like a D&D party that I can play with like you guys, and
Yeah.
what like crazy ideas we can come up with, because
Yeah.
it seems like a game where you can make some really funny strategies, because that's just D&D.
Oh, we're already planning on possibly Randy. Someone has to be a little person, like either like a half elf or a gnome, and me and Seth are just going to be throwing them all the time. So it'll be a fun time. It'll be a fun time. Seth, quickly, what are some of your thoughts on Baldur's Gate?
I'm sorry that you said quickly, because it's not going to be quickly.
All right, my fault.
Yeah.
Long leg.
So I want to hop in and say with this, key part with Baldur's Gate 3 is there's the 3 at the end. There are other games besides Baldur's Gate 3. I want to, and like I get it. You guys like want to focus on the D&D aspect, which I think is the reason that a lot of the modern audience is now being drawn to this. But just keep in mind, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, even during their time, which was like in the 90s, were considered groundbreaking CRPGs. In fact, I think they were considered some of the first ones on the scene, being developed by BioWare Studios. You've definitely heard that name before. If you're into gaming, if you're into RPGs, and if you listen to this podcast, you've heard of BioWare before. I think what Larian has done is they kind of stepped up into the role and kind of filled a void that BioWare has kind of left open for a long time, which is like this like big epic scale like fantasy RPG with an emphasis on like world and storytelling and character development and like building relationships with those characters. And I think Larian has done a phenomenal job of like stepping into those shoes. If you haven't checked it out, I really recommend their Divinity Original Sin series. I really think Larian's been in the game for a long, long time. Divinity has always been their baby. And I feel like Original Sin was around the time they finally found their voice. And Original Sin is what allowed Baldur's Gate 3, I think, to succeed. And another thing, like Robert said, this is an early access title. I think that's a big reason why there's so much polish and love and detail into this game, is because this game has been in early access since at least 2020. Um, like, if you want to get into it, like another one of our favorite games is that is Hades, which also was a early access title. Early access has kind of gotten a bad rep, but I think Baldur's Gate and Hades both make the case for, like, when it's done well with like a talented dev team that pays attention to their community and what they want, they can deliver this kind of level of quality with their content. If you want to know why they're able to have so many different scenarios account for so many different ways players will solve quests, it's because they were talking with the community. This game was being built with Larian and its community hand in hand with each other, and that's why you have such a cohesive experience. I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3, and it has definitely been eating up my life. I've known since it came out that, like, if I get my hands on Baldur's Gate 3 eventually, it is a Seth-ass game. I'm going to be diving deep into it, and I have definitely dove deep into it. It's just fun. There's so many different ways to play that encourages. You can be stealthy, you can be aggressive, you can do trickery, you can talk your way out of situations, you can do stupid bullshit.
You can always just drop a barrel on someone.
Yeah,
an explosive barrel, that is,
or multiple barrels. I like to think my playstyle method is Goblin Rot Brain, where I basically stockpile the shit out of like explosives and items, and I just wait for the perfect opportunity to use it. And sometimes that means leveling a whole church full of goblins with explosives.
You got 'em.
Because it's just like, I don't want. It's like, hey, I don't want to deal with the turn-based combat here. I'll just take them all out in one go. But getting back to it, Baldur's Gate 3 is like phenomenal. I think, like I said, the reason it's winning Game of the Year awards is because the scope of it and the quality of it is, the scope of the game is matching also the quality of it as well. I've enjoyed my time with this so much. It's definitely a game that I'm going to be sinking much more time into. It's definitely a top 5 game for me personally this year, and I haven't even started playing it till like this month. So yeah, like, honestly, like, big props to the Larian Studios. They did such a fantastic job with this game, and I really hope that their work here kind of sets an example for like the rest of the industry. And I want to clarify, not that I want everyone to make a Baldur's Gate 3 or even something to that scale, but I'm talking about sharing in the same level of love for your product and like trying to, like, you know, communicate with your community. I think that was a key point, is like Larian was just very vocal about like how much of the community input influenced their decisions for the way they were able to design quests to build around like how players are going to act. One of my favorite things they talk about is one of the characters, Shadowheart, affectionately also known as Shart. She has a artifact that's very important to the story, and Larian had to basically jump through so many hoops because the artifact is such an important part of the main story, and Shadowheart starts with it, and it's like, okay, how do we make sure the player gets it, even though they might kill Shadowheart or abandon Shadowheart or like maybe do all this stuff, but like, I don't want to mess with the artifact. They had to account for so many different ways that could go wrong, and they did it. They fucking did it, of like giving the player the freedom that they want, while also still making it like cohesive with the main story. I'm kind of rambling, but like I agree with like Randy. This game is just so much fun. Even if you're not really into turn-based games, I highly recommend checking it out, just because the level of interactivity with like spells and tools and combat and like the environment, it allows you to do some absolutely bonkers shit. So just like check it out. It's definitely worth the $60 to $70, depending on what edition you buy and what platform you buy it on. It's definitely worth the money.
Yeah. All right. Well said. And I think we could probably make this entire podcast about Baldur's Gate 3, but as you all know,
And next week, next podcast is about
movies.
Baldur's Gate 3 review.
No. We're gonna be talking about movies next week. We haven't done a podcast about movies in a while. I mean, I guess not you guys, but anyway, that's a hint towards next week. Anyway, best games of 2023. We shall move on, and I will go now, mainly because I think this is the other big one that a lot of us want to talk about. And this might also be Seth's game of the year as well. More than likely is. But that is Baldur's Gate was this big, amazing, like fantastical game that had early access and was this big lead up to this game. And then there's this other game that is the exact opposite, not only like gameplay wise, but also in the way that this came out. You have heard us talk about this.
I thought you were about to say Baldur's Gate.
Yes, my game is also Baldur's Gate. No. No. This is a game that one random Xbox showcase, nothing super spectacular, and then randomly there is this hyper colorful, music-based, like, Devil May Cry inspired action game. And you're like, this is really cool looking, and this is super polished. Wow, when did this came out? Right now. And it was out on Game Pass, and a lot of us tried it. And I can tell you, at least 3 out of 4 people in this podcast fell in love with this game that came out of freaking left field, and that's Hi-Fi Rush. This game is so simple, but so beautiful at the same time. One of my favorite things in movies, video games, and almost any medium, even in my own work, and I'm an editor for the news, which I know is a lot of people don't see as an art form, but still, it mixes music with like your movement and your actions and everything you do. And anytime you can combine movement with like gameplay feel or just any kind of feeling or movement, makes something look like magical and beautiful. And this entire game, that's what it's based on. When you jump, it's to the beat. Everything in the background's to the beat. Every time you swing, it's to the beat. If you hit the buttons to the beat, you get more damage. Everything in this game is like it's like a concept game, but it works, and the concept's just amazing. And that's not I haven't even got on top of just like how fun and wild the characters are. It actually has an impactful story and all this, but I could ramble about Hi-Fi Rush forever, and I have done it before on previous podcasts. But I'm going to throw it to Seth real quick, because I don't know if this is what you decide on your game of the year, but at the very least, I know it's in like the top 3 for you, Seth.
Oh, yeah. It is my game of the year. Now, that being said, I do have like another game I would like to talk about, but we'll get to that when it's my turn.
Okay.
But yes, no, Hi-Fi Rush is absolutely my game of the year. A lot of what you said is absolutely true. And I think what makes Hi-Fi Rush so special, and it's what I look for a lot in games, is I love it when a game is it's in harmony with itself, where there's not wasted space, there's not a bunch of fluff on it, where like the core element of the game is spread out through all of its systems. It's not trying to be too many things at once. And I think that's what Hi-Fi Rush does so well. The fact that like music and themes about music is at its core in both like its narrative and in its presentation and in its combat and its style, and it just spreads throughout, just makes the whole experience just it's like I said, it's just cohesive. It's a wholesome experience. And I can't express how much I love that. I feel like we live in a day and age where we have a lot of games that are trying to be every game possible. And sometimes I think that leads to a lack of focus. And I feel like there is a razor sharp focus with Hi-Fi Rush on what it needed to be. Because at the end of the day, it's a game that decided that what's more important than anything else is it just wants to be a fun fucking video game.
Mm-hmm.
Like minor rant, but it feels like we get so many games that are always like super dark and moody, and we have to take it seriously because we got like big budget actors behind it with mocap faces and shit, and it's always dark and gloomy. Talk about dark and gloomy stuff. Last of Us. And to me, I'm burnt out on that kind of shit. So having Hi-Fi Rush kind of comes along during this period of like gaming feels like a breath of fresh air. It feels genuinely like something new. And the fact that like it's like Reese's being invented, like peanut butter and chocolate coming together, rhythm and action gameplay coming together. It's like why didn't people think of this before? And yes, people have thought of this before. I know that like No Straight Roads exists. That's great for them, but Hi-Fi Rush like kills it. But I think the best praise I can heap onto Hi-Fi Rush, and I'm pretty sure it's something I said before, is that it is a AAA game that feels and looks like the heart of an indie game. It's what I want a AAA game to be, where you have like such a powerful creative vision behind like the art style and the music and like the gameplay, all of it working in tandem with each other, and you're putting it towards something that you genuinely love, and like that's something that's actually unique and actually like creative. It's just Hi-Fi Rush is just a fun time. Like the characters, their interactions, the music, like it's, oh my god, like I know we've rambled on so much about this, but I love Chai as a main character. Chai is like so much fun. Like he's just an idiot, but he's such a lovable idiot.
And
like
because Chai, his character, it's so easy to do that wrong. It's so easy to make him so annoying you don't want to be with him. Like he's like if the comic relief character was the main character, and it's like it's so easy to mess that up and to make him seem not sincere and just a terrible like asshole. Like he's annoying and not funny. I don't want to be, but he's not. He's genuinely funny. He's genuine sincere. You see, he has an actual character growth and character motivation through the movie, and every single like character that like he interacts with not only benefits his character but benefits from the interaction. Every character in this game has some form of story arc, and everyone like bounces off of him, i.e. you, the player, like very well. And it's something like it feels like so simple of just like make him likable, and it's a weird thing to describe, but like it works. And that's just like what Hi-Fi Rush is. Just almost everything they try works. Like, we didn't even mention the part about how it's like it seamlessly blends between gameplay to CG to anime style like openings, like it's a Saturday morning or like a Saturday morning cartoon, and like it goes through all those like super seamlessly as well, even in cutscenes. And like this, the game just like works on like almost everything it tries to do.
It really does. And like going back to like the characters too, I want to say that like I think what makes it work too is just oh god, it certainly borrows elements from a lot of different places. Like I think it has a lot of like visual inspirations from something like say Persona, especially since like a lot of the dialogue is that kind of like visual novel poppy kind of like vibe look to it. But I love that. And also, not to mention, I think the heart and soul of this game in terms of like its story is Chai and Peppermint's like relationship. First off, Robbie Damon and Robert, please correct me if I'm wrong, but Erica Lindbeck.
That's right.
Okay, good. Those two, their chemistry is amazing. Like you've seen this trope before. Big idiot hero paired with snarky, no nonsense, not sidekick, but like the hacker girl or whatever. Yeah. But they do the trope so well here, and it feels like, as Drew mentioned before, it feels sincere, and I think that's what makes delivery so well. Plus, not to mention that like Robbie and Erica both worked on Persona 5, and it's nice to see like where they were kind of like sort of playing opposites of each other. Here they're like more coming together in their own way. So I love that. I love their interaction so much in this game. And that's not just them either. Like obviously there's so many other characters. The rest of the cast, like Macaron, and Corsica, and oh my gosh.
Cinnamon.
Cinnamon. I always forget his name and I feel so bad about it. But I
Cinnamon.
love those characters.
I love
808.
He's got to draw on his own expressions because he can't make it with his robot face.
It's such a cool like
It's just a
detail. And
clever
like
character
Yeah.
idea.
it is. And like I also really love the villains too.
Oh my gosh, yes.
The Roger Craig Smith does Kale, right? If I remember correctly, voice of
I think
Sonic.
so.
Yeah. Okay. He is so funny to me in this game. Like I just love the fact that like he is just such like he plays the dickhead so well in this game. I remember what was it like he brings in like the robot attacks Peppermint and Chai and Corsica while they're like trying to like evac out of this area, and like he deploys like a flamethrower to do it, and he's like, "You're fired." Damn, I should have said that. I'll save it for next time. And then just rides off. And I just like it's just like little things like that. Like there's always a joke every minute, and if one doesn't land with you, chances are the next one will. And like, oh, it's so good.
My favorite joke from him is when he's like, I don't know if it's him or someone else, but he's like, "Shut down all. We gotta shut down all systems. Close it down." And then later goes on the intercom. Like, "Why isn't the coffee machine working?" It's like, "You said to shut down all the systems. Everything except the coffee machine, you idiot." And it's
So
so funny.
that, but yeah, like it's, I just love it. Like there's like
Yeah.
so much like personality, and I want to see more games like this. Like I want to see more like the studios, like instead of always having to go out for the biggest, most ambitious project, like do something that's more like intimate and fun and like more colorful. Because I feel like we got plenty of like dark and serious games out there at this point.
Yeah.
And it's like I could, and while I enjoyed those, I could use a little bit more of these kinds of games because like these are fun. Whenever Hi-Fi Rush came out, everyone was calling it like it's like a GameCube game or like a PS2 era game.
It's
But
like,
people are like, but we mean this in the best way possible. And it's like, yes, like I do miss that era of like kind of gaming, and I think now is the right time to bring it back.
yeah,
'cause
it gave me very.
It reminds you that in like the major gaming space, it doesn't always have to be the doom and gloom. Because
Yeah.
people say stuff like that because think of the biggest games that were in the 90s. You had shit like Mario, Spyro, Crash Bandicoot in like the late 90s. Like those are all very cartoony games.
hmm
Like that used to be what a lot of the games were. You didn't see a lot of super serious stuff, and that was like really unique when that stuff was like kind of being brought in, like shit like Metal Gear Solid and whatnot.
Yeah.
But now it's kind of turned around to where you're not going to see these like games that are not afraid to be more lighthearted, and that's something that Hi-Fi Rush really does well for me. It feels like it's an indie game, but it's not. Like we mentioned earlier, it's got the soul of an indie game, but it's got the budget of a AAA game.
Which allows it to have like the polish that it needs to make it so good as it is. And it's like this is what we're missing out on, is like the creativity of the indie space has always been limited by their budgets. And it's like it finally feels like, and I know there's other games out there, but like Hi-Fi Rush feels like such a good example of like where budget meets creative vision and actually is pulled off well. And I just want to see more of that. Like, I hope going forward, please, more of this, more Hi-Fi Rushes. I think the world could use a few more of those.
And hopefully it is, because I think like so many people, it's not just us, like so many people have supported this game and shown how much they love this game. Heck, to the point where like, and again, as we mentioned earlier, this kind of game normally doesn't get the spotlight. But heck, this game won a Game of the Year, which I know we all have our issues with that award show. But at the very least,
Mhm.
and yes, it definitely should have been nominated for more before you say it, Seth. I know.
Mhm.
But the fact that it not only was nominated for a couple things and won, it definitely should have won sound design given what it is.
It
But
won more than Spider-Man 2.
yeah, so by default it's a better game than Spider-Man 2. But yeah,
I do think it's just a quick aside. I do think it is funny that Spider-Man 2 gets nominated for Game of the Year, doesn't win a single fucking thing, but at least Hi-Fi Rush got nominated for multiple areas and at least one award. So there's that.
Spider-Man 2
I'm
got
just saying.
nominated for other things.
Yeah, no, it did, and it didn't
Yeah.
win any
And
of
it
them.
didn't win anything.
Like, at least Hi-Fi Rush won one of the things it got nominated for.
Yeah. God, but I'm so like, God, I can't believe I'm saying that, but I'm so proud of this game that I love that it's getting recognized. And I didn't know this game was real before this year, before June. Like, no one did. It was
January. Yeah.
It was like because it was near my birthday because it was either late June or very early January. This game came out of freaking nowhere, and everyone loved it, and it's just it blows my mind. It does everything that the gaming industry tells you not to do, and it just subverts all these tropes and all these things, and it's such like this like beautiful mess that on paper shouldn't work. Games like this, everything the industry's told us so far, games like these shouldn't succeed. It shouldn't be getting the recognition it is, but it is, and that's a beautiful thing. And that's why, like, both me and Seth like have it as our game of the year. If a certain game didn't come out also this year, I know Robert would have it. And whenever Randy actually plays it, because I know you have it now, it'll be one of Randy's top games.
Eventually.
Eventually.
I'll get to it.
Yeah, shout outs to Seth, by the way, who got him that.
I'm trying to do my part in making sure as many people play Hi-Fi Rush I know possibly can.
Yeah.
Plus, also, what like I feel like one last thing we could talk about before this is just a quick mention. The soundtrack is amazing to this game. Of course, it is. It
had to be for a game like this, yeah.
But like, what makes it so good? And I feel like it really should have won Best Music in my opinion. But like the fact that like the music is not only like goes along so well and is so perfect with the sequences it needs to be, like whether it's like an escape sequence or a fight sequence or a boss fight, like they're paired so well. The license tracks are perfect. They're amazing. But at the same time, the streamer mode where they have the like copyright friendly versions of the songs that they made themselves is so good that some of the songs are even better than the like licensed music that they use. It's like, chef's kiss. It's like you're getting this amazing like album on top of like already an amazing game.
I need to play that game on streamer mode.
Same.
I need to play it on stream. Maybe I'll start streaming just to play that game on streamer mode.
It's definitely worth it. I promise you. It is like, oh my god, so good.
That's cool. All right.
So yeah.
Well, Robert, Seth, you already talked a lot. Robert, any final thoughts on Hi-Fi Rush before we continue? I know we have said a lot about the game.
A great intro game to character action games. If stuff like Devil May Cry kind of intimidates you, play Hi-Fi Rush. It's so much easier to get into. It doesn't really hold your hand as much, but just intuitively, it just feels easier to get a grasp of because everything kind of goes to the beat. And even if you don't hit to the beat, it automatically like hits it anyways. You're just not going to do as much damage. So you're going to feel good playing no matter what.
Yeah. Ironically, it's like also kind of ironic. It's a good intro to rhythm games as well. Because I was talking to a coworker and she's like, "Yeah, I normally didn't like rhythm games, but when I found out you don't actually have to hit it to the beat, I gave it a try." And then she's like, "I started hitting it to a beat naturally, and I think I like rhythm games now." So it's a weird. This game has it all. It's fantastic.
This is how we lead people into Fortnite Rock Band.
This is, oh my gosh, everything revolves around Fortnite. Okay, well,
it's the game that
I learned something new.
Everything.
Yeah, go Yeah, go play Hi-Fi Rush. This is the second time we've ranted about it on a podcast, go play it. It's a good game. So, moving forward, Seth, I'll give you a minute to catch your breath because we've been talking for a while. Robert, you don't get a break though, because Robert,
Oh, yippee.
it's your turn. What is
All right.
Robert's game of the year? Who could guess?
All right. Well, if you were thinking that it was going to be Tears of the Kingdom, you would actually be wrong this time.
Ah,
I've thought about this a lot over the past week. It was between two games, Tears of the Kingdom or what I ultimately settled on, which was the remake of Resident Evil 4.
Oh,
So,
the twist.
if we're if we're going purely on playtime, then yeah, Tears of the Kingdom won this. I put a lot more time into Tears of the Kingdom. But with RE4 remake, I just had so much more fun playing it. Um, which you could probably some kind of bias because it's based off of something that I already love, which is the original Resident Evil 4. But this I don't want to fully call it modernizing RE4, but a more modern take, I guess. Probably the same thing, but either way,
Yeah,
more
we know what
modern
you mean.
take of Resident Evil 4, and it was just a very beautiful game to play. It feels super smooth. You can see how much passion put into it. Like the people who made this game really wanted fans of the original Resident Evil 4 to have an amazing time with it. And it's a masterfully done remake because it doesn't fully invalidate playing the original Resident Evil 4. There's still reasons to go back and play the original game even with the remake existing. But what this game does extremely well, I think, is definitely the gameplay. It definitely has modern gunplay because the original Resident Evil 4, for those who aren't aware, is a game where you pretty much you hold down a button just to aim your gun and then start shooting at things. You have to hold your ground per se, but Resident Evil 4 Remake is a much more mobile game, and it does that through not only just more modern controls, but even the way the enemies interact with you is a lot faster paced. Enemies are a much more aggressive than they were in the original Resident Evil 4. So while the original game kind of made you have to hold your ground and really kind of pick your fights, you're going to be a lot more mobile and move around the big world, and the the maps complement it, the enemy design complement it, everything complements each other so well that it's just an amazing game to play. All of the weapons and such feel fun, unique to use. Of course, there's the upgrade system, so even your starting pistol, there's still reasons to use it in the end game, and all of it just feels so good to me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fan service moments from the original. They brought back a lot of fan favorite lines or moments in the game, and almost nothing was really cut in the remake. Originally, some set pieces and boss fights weren't in the remake, but with the Separate Ways DLC where you play as Ada, they added a lot of that stuff back in. So virtually everything that was in the original game is here in remake. So you pretty much get a different take on kind of the same experience from 2004. And a lot of my gripes and such of the original game addresses.
Yeah.
I know one of my gripes was a lot of the dialogue was super campy, corny. Some of it didn't age well, especially some of the lines about Ashley. So
yeah,
so them
yeah.
changing it to be a lot less I guess derogatory, if you will. Definitely good.
The
The
fact.
story kind of makes a little more sense. um, they do a lot more to kind of explain things rather than just have to go along with it, especially with stuff like Leon and Krauser's relationship, because they really don't explain that in the original game. So if you haven't seen any of the extended material, you're you're gonna have no clue who the fuck Krauser is. But here they
Yeah.
kind of have some lore tidbits, and even like the beginning of the game, there's a little blurb, kind of what Leon was up to after the events of two. I think you're about to say something, Seth.
Yeah, I think what it kind of brings to mind is it feels like with Resident Evil 4 remake compared to Resident Evil 4 is it feels like the Capcom's team was like, if there's an opportunity that we can expand something, we took it in Resident Evil 4 remake. Like anything that felt like be like, oh, that was a little underdeveloped, they developed it. Like you mentioned, Krauser's like backstory with Leon. I also think they did a great job with Luis and like actually making him more of like an actual character and giving him like an arc that was like genuinely touching. In my opinion, making actually way more like interesting and can actually hold her own and likable as a character. Like just those little details alone just make the game just so great. But I'm gonna send it back to you.
Yeah, like going off like the her character, the dynamic between her and Leon just feels so much more natural throughout the game, and she doesn't feel as much of like a pushover, I guess. Like you don't command her around the same way, so it's not as like what's what I'm looking for? It's not
Like
as
a damsel in distress or something
yeah,
like that.
yeah. It's like she still technically is that, but she can do much more on her own, and she even like helps with some puzzle stuff. Like later in the game, there'll be like a bridge that you have to like crank open. She's like, "All right, I'm on it," and you don't even have to like get her to do it.
Yeah,
Like she takes more initiative.
she's
She
less a
has she
she.
grows a lot through that like you know the course of the game. It takes over place over like a day. She's changed a lot throughout a day, and it feels natural. And even in like this segment where you play as her, she just feels a lot more competent than she did in the original game.
Yeah, she's less of,
I
and she's more of a character in this one versus in the original. She was a bit more of like a puppet. Like she was there almost as someone for Leon to order and to like kind of ball to protect. But this time
You
she's
don't
like,
have to tell her to hide into a dumpster.
yeah, she'll do it herself.
There's only like two hiding spots I think in the whole game for her, and it's like a locker that has like the yellow paint.
Yeah,
I I think one of the moments that you're talking about where like Ashley stepped up that really like caught my eye was during the fight where Leon jumps down into like this sort of like arena style area to get an item that they need to progress, and then like the knights start coming alive with like the parasite and starts attacking him. And then she starts grabbing like what was it? It was like flaming urns or something like that with blue
The blue
fire.
fire.
Yeah, lanterns, I think, actually. Now I
Yeah,
remember.
they're
It's like
like
blue
lanterns.
fire lanterns, and she starts throwing it at them, and it kind of like one, it sort of explains like, yes, the blue fire makes like these creatures freeze up the parasites because the exposure to light, but also like it's just cool to see her just step up and actually trying to like help Leon out. It's oh my god, it's so cool. Like, like if you, I think Resident Evil 4 remake is a great spot to jump in for like new players. Obviously, like if you never played the original, yeah, absolutely jump in on this. But there's so much little things to where if you played the original Resident Evil 4, you get so much out of the remake because of like the smart callbacks or the way they develop characters. Be like, oh man, that's so fucking cool that they did this. Like that's just a feeling that you have constantly when playing this game.
yeah. It ever since when they originally like started remaking the Resident Evil franchise, a lot of people's initial thought was, well, they had two thoughts. One, oh my god, they're eventually going to get to 5 and 6 and make them good games. But two, they're like, oh, that means they have to touch 4. And 4, even before this remake was reviewed as like, this is like the holy grail of Resident Evil. This was lightning in a bottle. How are they going to do this? So there was a lot of pressure on this team to do this right. But, it's like we've mentioned before, like the games that we all keep talking about, it's clear not only in those, but also in this, like there is a team behind this that genuinely cared about the product. Like they were making, not just to make it a product, but like, no, we respect this game, we love this game. Some of those developers probably played it when they were younger. We're going to do it right and not just kind of make a cheap, cheap remake. And like it's very obvious and shown because they not only made the game, good, but they took it and said, no, the original game had flaws. How can we improve upon that?
Something that I really appreciate about Resident Evil 4 Remake is that it shows that you could have a game with these these very realistic graphics and dark tone, but still make it feel like a fucking video game. There's just a
Yeah.
lot of very gamey elements in it that just make it stand out a lot. You get like the fun weapon upgrade system. You get like enemies drop like pesetas on the ground or ammo or healing items, stuff like that. It's like it it manages to blend that of a realistic game and it add to the experience. And it's something that I really wish you see in a lot more of these like I guess realistic kind of games, just more gamey elements to them.
Yeah.
They're video games, like,
Yeah.
guys, like, come on, let's have fun with this.
Let video games be video games.
Uh,
what a
but
strange message we
I-
just sent.
but like, and also like visually, like as Robert mentioned before, God, I still can't get over like how good like the art design is behind this game. Like it just, oh God, like the village itself is, especially since we got things like God, like the village raining at night, like after you go through the chieftain's house is like just so immerses you into that like world, like like the rain like sweeping down and like the wind carrying it and it's like howling in your ears. You hear like the villagers milling around in like the little village area itself. Your frame rate dropping because of how rainy it is.
Hey,
It's so immersive.
They toned down. They toned down the rain from the beta or like from the initial like gameplay preview. Because it was crazy originally.
They really did, and it's something that I listened to our podcast last year, and Resident Evil 4 Remake was my most anticipated game of last year, and I want to say it by country miles, it definitely like met my expectations and more. Like I just want to make that clear. So thank you, Robert, for putting this game on this list because I was afraid I would not have an opportunity to talk about it at all. But I just like love like the art design, and what I love too is something that I would hope back in our last Game of the Year podcast was I was hoping that maybe since Resident Evil 4 OG was more kind of goofy, and this one is absolutely. I was really hoping that they could maybe tone up the horror elements a little bit more, and they did in a way from like the art design. Like I feel like where the villagers were a lot goofier in like the original, this game does make them genuinely creepy. They're still kind of goofy, with like some of their like voice lines and stuff, but like the parasite, like the first time you went down into that basement and you hear the guy that Leon quote unquote killed earlier with a roundhouse kick, and he comes down and his neck is snapped and he like lunges at Leon in the dark, is like genuinely freaked me out the first time I watched it. I was like, this is not what I was fucking expecting. And like there's like little details too, like you see the parasite trying to break out through their faces when they do that, and it has like all the weird worm tentacle things. It's like it's so cool. Ashley's part with the knights, fucking creepy, but so tense. And it's like it's so cool. Like I'm gonna quote what I said a year ago on this podcast, where I was like, where it's just like I want it to still be goofy, but I also want it to be a little bit more scary. And I realized what I'm asking for is the perfect video game. And I kind of think they succeeded, honestly. Like they met a lot of the things that I wanted and more for Resident Evil 4 Remake.
Yeah. It had a big task, but I think they, for the most part, they did it. They freaking did it.
I have a harder time finding things that I dislike about RE4 Remake than I do Tears of the
Yeah.
Kingdom, and I think that was a pretty big factor in my decision.
No, that's fair. Even as someone who hasn't played Tears of the Kingdom, I'm kind of glad you went with this pick because I'm like, well, Tears of the Kingdom is not a bad game. Looking at like RE4, I'm like, I don't know. It just feels like RE4 has more soul and more heart to put into it, and that has been put into it. I know it's a weird thing, and you can't actually like judge that on a scale, but like, it's just like from the attention to detail, from the improvements to like the characters of old, to the world that they made, and like how Leon moves and traverses, and like how he fits so well there. It just works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that like was like my biggest turnoff with calling Tears of the Kingdom like my game of the year was the fact that the pretty much the selling premise of Tears of the Kingdom was the new gimmick with like the building stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's a fun gimmick. I think it's really creative and there's a lot of things you can do with it. But I think what kind of holds it back for me is the fact that you can use it to really exploit a lot of things in the game, like a lot of puzzles and whatnot.
Yeah.
That it feels like you're cheating in a way sometimes, and not always in a good way.
It almost
With
turns into like a
Resident Evil
sandbox game.
4,
Yeah.
with Resident Evil 4, there are things you can do to kind of cheese the game, if you will, but they're a lot more like knowledge dependent. Like the example I like to go to is when you're having to collect all these items in the castle after you do like the courtyard section. You have like the three like MacGuffins you have to collect before the Ashley section. There's a spot where there's like a little bridge that an enemy will like lower down. You have to go through like a combat encounter. If you're running on that bridge and throw a flashbang, you can stun the enemy long enough to get the item before the enemy can lower the bridge.
Oh
And,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, stuff
That's
like
fun. That's
cheesy,
not it. I don't
but
even think
it
that's cheesy.
requires
That's just
knowledge.
Yeah, that's just like that's honestly just good game knowledge. I think that's fun.
It's
That's
rewarding and doesn't make you feel like very disappointed.
Yeah,
that
you
it
feel
was that
smart
easy.
because I'm like I figured this out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Tears of the Kingdom has a lot of those I feel smart moments. I'm not gonna say it doesn't, but I feel like with Tears of the Kingdom a lot of the times you can kind of cheese a lot of things with the rewind spell or whatever it's
Yeah.
called.
It's just like Tears of the Kingdom's like the same. You can probably brute force your way through almost any puzzle.
Yeah, and then also the fact that it doesn't feel like your actions in Breath of the Wild mattered as much. And what I mean about this is a lot of the side characters. In a lot of interactions in Tears of the Kingdom, you might talk to an NPC that you remember doing a quest with in like Breath of the Wild, and there's virtually no acknowledgement that you did anything with them. It just feels like Link is a stranger to them, even though he like maybe directly made their life better in Breath of the Wild. There's no like cohesion in that, and that was like one of the biggest letdowns to me is that it doesn't feel like the actions I took in Breath of the Wild really meant anything.
I do want to say, just to avoid entire Tears of the Kingdom slander on this podcast, Drew, going back to your point earlier, I don't know if I quite agree. Like, not as much heart was put into Tears of the Kingdom. I do. I do agree, but that's obviously just subjective. We can't measure heart in a video game.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no science to it.
It's a weird thing. It's just a feeling. Yeah.
But I do agree that there is just something about like, because I've been playing Tears of the Kingdom as well, and obviously I played the Resident Evil 4 remake, and there's just something so much more immediate of like, Tears of the Kingdom kind of feels like I can be a little overwhelmed, at times. There's a lot going on in that game. So much to explore, and it's so epic, and it's so cool. But there is something nice about Resident Evil 4 Remake just being this lean, tight experience. But at the same time, that doesn't mean it's linear. It kind of linear, but there's enough room for exploration in that world. So, um, but I do think, like, if you ask me at the end of the day, which I thought was the better game, I do think it is Resident Evil 4 remake, because where basically Tears of the Kingdom was it tweaking the elements that already made Breath of the Wild so great in the first place. Resident Evil 4 remake had the taller task of like you need to create an identity for yourself while at the same time paying respect to the original source material. That's hard as fuck to pull off, and they did it.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. But we have talked quite a lot about RE4 and also Tears of the Kingdom somehow. And that is not the last thing we have for this very first category. Because Seth, while you did say Hi-Fi Rush is your favorite, you said you had another game that you wish to talk about as your game of the year. So let's
since
hear this
me
one.
and Drew are both awarding Hi-Fi Rush with the Fresh Game of the Year award, I want to use my turn to highlight another game that's very special to me this year. My number 2 pick. And in a lot of ways, it's very similar to how Hi-Fi Rush came out. It's Pizza Tower. They both came out at the start of this year. It's sad that like Pizza Tower, and I, I don't want to throw any shade at Cocoon. I kind of feel bad for those developers because unfortunately they're probably going to be known as the indie dev studio that robbed quote unquote Pizza Tower, and I feel bad for them honestly because I know how passionate the Pizza Tower fan base is. But Pizza Tower it came out at the start of this year, and not a surprise. We knew it was coming out, but I think what was surprising was just how much just fun it was. If you look up any gameplay of it, it's a Wario World, right, Robert? That's what it's based on. Wario World. In case you don't know what Wario World is, Pizza Tower, Wario Land. I apologize. So the general gameplay of Pizza Tower is very simple. You have to reach the end of it's a 2D platforming game where you can go very fast. You have to reach the end of a level where there's a pillar. You break that pillar, and then you have to run all the way back to the start of the level and essentially escape it while a timer is counting down. Very simple premise, but what they do with that premise is so fun. Each level has such a great sense of identity. That's like the strongest thing I could speak about is just the level design there's no bad levels in my opinion in Pizza Tower. Each level brings its own sense of identity, whether it's like its music or its gameplay gimmick or like the general art of it. It's just so much fun. Oh my god, I wish I could think of the specific names. Like the Pig City one, where you're just like, you have like this nice like little hip hop beat going on while you're running through this city full of like pig cops or whatever, and then you have to take like a taxi cab between different parts of the level. It's so much fun.
They have a lot of really fun cutaways too. With that.
Oh yeah, with Peppino inside like the taxi cab. One of my favorites is whenever the escape sequence starts, the villain of the game, Pizza Face, replaces Peppino's taxi cab driver, and Peppino's just freaking out in the back of like the cab. I love that so much. So like the gameplay is just, it's fun, it's tense. One of the gameplay aspects I really like about it is, except for boss fights, you don't really have a health bar in Pizza Tower, which makes it, I think it's great because it makes it more likely you're willing to take risks. So like during these like levels, basically getting hurt, just the only downside to that really is it just slows you down. And obviously in Pizza Tower, you want to go as fast as you can. But I like that. I like the idea that it's like, you know what? Let's not put a health bar during these levels. Let's just let the player run through it. And I feel like by taking out a health bar and letting Peppino be quote unquote invincible during these sequences, it encourages the player to take more risk at the runs. They're like, I think I can take that jump. I think I can slide under that trap. And it just, the movement is just feels so good because of that. Because we talked about it with AC before. there has to be good risk reward, but risk doesn't have to mean death. Sometimes it just means you slow down. Um, and I love that in Pizza Tower. Just like that, just the general feel of that gameplay. It feels slippery in a good way. Because like Pepino just feels like a unstoppable force, and you're just trying to control the direction that he's going in. Um, Not to mention just like I just love all the little characters, and like even though there's not like quote unquote dialogue per se in this game, I love how much expression is brought through just through the animation style, which if you watch anything from like Nickelodeon like 90s stuff like Rocco's Modern Life, or like maybe if you're thinking like Cow and Chicken from Cartoon Network, it has the right amount of like rough edges to feel like a 90s cartoon. And oh god, I live for that shit. Maybe it's because
like
I'm
that
an old
Newgrounds
man.
Flash vibe.
Yes, like, and I think that's another thing is we talk about indies. This feels like a very particular kind of brand of indie, which is like me being in middle school, uh, whenever I definitely should not be trying to log on to Newgrounds so I can play fucking Flash games, and like, oh my god, it's so fun. Yeah, harkens back to. It feels nostalgic, even though I never played fucking Wario Land. Like there, oh god, I'm sorry, I'm gushing right now. It's such a fun game. Like I said, it much like Hi-Fi Rush. It's the art and music and level design and the gameplay all coming together to make a cohesive experience with no fat on it. And if you want to uncover new secrets, and if you want to like go for the higher rankings, you absolutely can. That is completely up to you. Um, I know we've talked a lot about the other games, and I wanted to highlight Pizza Tower. Pizza Tower is one of those games where, at the end of the day, you just have to experience it for yourself. I can talk about it all day long, but it would feel like me trying to explain to you why is Super Mario so fun, like Super Mario Brothers so fun. It's like you jump on Goombas and stuff like that. It's just like, yeah, it's kind of the same deal with Pizza Tower. Go play it yourself, experience it. It's so fun. I will end things with this. I love Pizza Tower so much. What I hope going forward is, I don't know if they've expressed any plans to do this, but I really hope like PlayStation or Xbox or Nintendo reaches out to Tour de Pizza, the developers behind this game. I hope they really reach out to the devs and try to get them published on one of their platforms, because I want to see this game everywhere. I want it so that no matter where you are, you can play Pizza Tower. That's my biggest hope going into the new year. It's great on Steam Deck. Yeah, I will say that much.
That's how I play it with Steam Deck.
Same, it is. But yeah, like honestly, Nintendo even. Like I feel like this would be such a great Nintendo Switch game. But
Probably.
Yeah, those are my thoughts on Pizza Tower.
All right. Well, those are all of our game of the years. Took a while to get through them. Don't know if the next categories will be quite as long. Probably not. Maybe. Who knows? But go check out those games. And so for the next category, we're going to keep this positivity train going, because these are the best games new to us. So again, these did not come out in 2023, or they might have, but I think all of ours didn't. But we discovered them this year and have been loving this. Randy, you still with us? Because
I'm still here.
All right, you're still here. I just gotta check because I'm about to.
I didn't have much to say about Pizza Tower and Resident Evil, so
yeah. Well, don't worry. I'm gonna talk about a game that you can talk about. I just want to make sure you hadn't fallen asleep on us.
No, I'm here.
So I had a couple of games that I could have, and I was very close to putting XCOM 2 as my game of the year. I want to shout out Randy for we did a little co-op playthrough, started at his place, and then we finished it up doing it on Steam. XCOM 2 was super fun to go through and to play through again. But then I really thought about it. It's like, I didn't really play that game. I just played the combat of it and then let Randy do all the tower stuff because he likes that and I don't.
Base management.
Which, like, yeah. shout out, best base manager in the game right over there. That man, Randy.
Tickles my brain.
But I
Alarms
will.
activated.
But my best new game to me is probably not shocked if you guys have been paying attention to this podcast, and it is also credit to again both Randy and Seth, who have been begging me to play these games. And yeah, the best new game to me finally is the Mass Effect Legacy Collection. Specifically, if I had to choose one out of
Yeah, baby.
We've been waiting for this.
it is
That's
one
what we've been
maybe.
waiting
If I had to pick one of the three, I'd probably say 2. Shocker to no one, because I think that's the popular opinion is 2's the best one. But all
Yeah.
three
the
of
popular
the,
opinion.
yeah, it's a popular opinion, but all 3 of these games, the Mass Effect series is truly something beautiful. Similar to Baldur's Gate, it's a game that very much is gathered around the player choice and the player's experience through this game. And it is such a... These type of games are really difficult to make because of how many branching paths, of how many storylines, of how many characters are put into these things, and all these different things you have to account for. But that's kind of what makes them special, because my playthrough feels like almost my own thing. It's not like Randy's. It's not like Seth. This is my game. You know, we met the same characters, but I feel differently about it because I made this choice or that choice. And yeah, the Mass Effect series is like, you know, it's I know it's near and dear and very like nostalgic to people's heart, but I can say at least 2 and 3 still hold up to this game. 1, I had to turn it down to easy because I could not get through that combat. And I know you guys say it was even worse when it came out. I don't know how y'all did that. Nothing against 1's story. It's great. But oh my gosh, it played like moving through molasses. But that just shows you how good the story and characters and just like the writing is in all 3 of those games. That like, even if the combat isn't as good for a hefty part of that trilogy, it still holds up to this day and continues, like, you know, gaining new fans and building new stories and continuing legacy. And I will say, credit where it's due, before one of you corrects me, the combat gets better. It gets better. We still need to, at one point, the 3 of us, like, all hop on the old Xbox thing and see if we could somehow do a multiplayer thing. I don't even know if that would work.
Servers are still up last time I played. To be fair, it's been a couple months, but
you know,
they're still up.
hey, we could
They're
try.
still kicking.
Yeah, we could try.
Or
Maybe
we
we'll
could also
get
do it
lucky.
on PC.
Yeah, PC servers are probably a little easier, but then I'd have to restart my entire manifest, and like I already built up so many weapons. Like, it ain't happening.
All right.
That's a fair point.
You guys can, you know, find a copy on eBay or GameStop or something on 360. I say that. I think you might still be able to buy a digital copy.
You might be able
On
to.
the
It's
storefront.
possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, the store doesn't go down until like summer next year.
Good old 360 store. But
I
yeah,
think you might be right.
the Mass Effect series is pretty good, and I don't know what the future holds for it. Randy's been pointing out to me that there's been a few little teaser trailers with some certain characters, but we
Yeah,
don't know.
they just released another one this past November 7th, and 7 Day is just, hey, that's a really cool character model walking down a hallway.
It's a really nice player.
But
It looks
I mean,
cool. It
looks cool. It's a cool
Yeah.
character model.
So, but yeah, not sure what the future for this series is. But now I can say confidently, as a fan of it, I'm excited for it, and it'll be interesting playing a Mass Effect for like at the same time everyone else is, and not having to play like major catch up basically. After my friends very much forced me to play a very good game, so thanks for being persistent, guys.
I was gonna say, how
is
dare we?
no
It worked
problem.
For
We will-
Persona 5.
I was going to. I literally,
Yeah.
Robert. No, that's not fair. I literally finished Mass Effect. And I said, "All right, I'll start Persona the next day," and they took it off Game Pass. And I asked you guys, "Do you think it's worth still like no life game?" You said no.
I don't recall saying no.
One of you
I did.
Okay. It's Seth's fault.
I admit I did, and like, and largely like it's just like it's a big ask for Persona 5. It's just like there's no way you're gonna be able to get through all that. It's just not possible. But Drew, I'm like obviously same with Randy here. I'm so happy that you gotten the chance to enjoy Mass Effect. And if there's one thing that you learned when you beat the Mass Effect 3 trilogy, it's never just one playthrough.
Yeah.
It's
There's
never just one. You got it
there's
out to your evil
final
run.
playthrough. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. I'm gonna be like the chick opposite Ted Lasso here. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do the evil run.
Love it. Get Ted Lasso reference.
You could do maybe a little bit more of a dickish run, but like full evil is asking a lot.
I guess that's fair.
I did have an idea for a playthrough, and I've been toying with this idea of the genocide playthrough.
That's just like that's so evil. That's too evil.
It is.
That's
It is hyper evil. It is purposefully. For those who don't know, because I've only described to you a little context for the viewers. It is the purposely getting as many crewmates as I can killed, which means at least 2 of them in 1, all of them in 2, and then various characters in 3. But like you have to, it's like a weird way you gotta map it out. Also, I don't know if it actually could work. But yeah, that's almost joking playthrough, but
it's foul.
It is foul. The genocide playthrough, and at the very end, I pick. I'll pick synthetic instead of destroy. joking.
Yeah.
Oh no,
but
I should pick do nothing. That'd be the perfect ending.
Yeah, do nothing. The true evil.
That would work. That would definitely work.
Yeah.
But yeah, like God, like Mass Effect is like such a special place in like my heart. Obviously because I grew up with it, and I assume with Randy it was kind of the same thing too, where like this game probably came to us around like middle school, high school, and it dominated like our lives.
I still remember Randy having a picture of Garrus on his binder.
Yeah.
As you should,
Fucking
as
nerd. No, I'm joking.
as any reasonable person should.
Fucking nerd. I should. Robert, why didn't you tell me then? You should have just looked at me and went, gay. And I was like, you knew before I did.
Actually, yeah, Robert, why did you not point this out to him? That was a clear
Because
sign.
he was a good friend. Because he was a good friend.
Fair. He was.
I wasn't ready.
I wasn't ready to hear it
what,
yet.
Junior year or senior year?
Junior. I think I kind of dealt with it senior year, but that's a whole nother podcast for another time. We're talking about video games.
I don't know if we're going to
This
do
is
that
Randy
podcast.
lore. I was not ready for the Randy lore today.
Yeah, that's a.
But yeah, I mean, Mass Effect. I mean, I'm so glad you finally played through it, and I really hope you do another playthrough. Maybe not the genocide run through, but like do a renegade run. Because
Maybe.
I know initially you were being a good paladin boy, or paragon.
Paladin
But
boy.
well, you know,
You can
Baldur's Gate on the
basically
brain.
most
yeah,
likely
Baldur's
you'll
Gate on
have-
the brain.
Yeah, most likely you'll have like a Paragon run with a seasoning of more Renegade in there is what it's probably going to turn into, which is fun. I
Yeah.
want to say that much. It's fun.
And then this time you can punch the reporters.
No, stop punching local journalists, people. Why does
I'm
everyone
not.
hate?
I'm not.
Why does everyone hate that
It-
woman? Like, what does she
I-
like? I didn't punch her. She didn't really like miss. Why does everyone hate this woman so much? Is there like a specific
She's
reason?
being a dick.
Yeah, but if you actually talk to her, like, she writes a decent article about you.
Yeah, but she's ambushing you as you're coming out of the fucking like your like port. You dock your ship and basically get on an elevator, and she's there just like, hey, why'd you leave Earth? All those people you could have saved, and you left, asshole.
To be fair,
I'm just like,
she
fuck
also-
off.
Okay,
bitch.
also-
She does kind of explain that like she's just like really hurt right now. Like
I'm about to say
I'm not
also
saying
like,
it fully justifies
as some
everything,
like,
but
you know, if I was a journalist and I didn't live on Earth and a lot of people didn't know, Yeah, I would want it. I would want an explanation, Shepard. Like, do you have a plan? Is there a reason you're not on Earth? Obviously, we as Shepard knows, but you gotta inform the people, Randy.
This
But
is no
no.
longer a. This is no
This
longer
is no
a
longer Game of the
podcast.
Year. This is Mass
This is
Effect
about,
3, Part 3. Because I know we had a
It-
two-parter already.
At the very least,
we're
it's
not here to
unjustified to
talk
punch her in two, because everyone says punch her because you meet her in two, and a lot of people just punch her then. She doesn't do anything wrong. Anyway, yeah.
But
Me playing Mass Effect, Seth, you were saying.
oh my god, I think I almost lost it there. But like, Drew, I just have to say, it's just welcome to the fan base.
Yeah.
Mass Effect. We know it's not the perfect game, but it's our favorite game.
Yeah.
It's quite good. I wish there was a better ending with 3, but I think that's just what being part of the fan base is.
This may not be the best thing to hear, but you kind of learn over years just to accept the charm of the weirdness of that ending.
I guess.
You have to accept the terms and conditions.
Okay. I didn't read the fine print on this contract clearly.
No
But-
one ever does.
But I think it was still worth it. But yeah, that's my best new to me. Obviously, we've talked about Mass Effect multiple times this year alone, and probably we'll talk about it in the future if this game does have a future. So that's enough about that for now. On to moving on. Switch up the order here, Robert.
So
So, what was the game that you played this year that might not have been specifically new this year, but you discovered it this year? What was that? What was that new to you game?
So I'm kind of going to cheat a little bit because I have two, but they're both from the same series.
God, this freaking.
So
game.
this
I mean, technically,
year
I
was
just
the
chose
year
3 games. If you really want to do
exactly.
that, so yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, he's allowed. He's allowed.
I'll
So-
allow it. Yeah.
So a series that I've been vaguely aware of for a while is the Nier series. They're like action JRPG games by Square Enix, directed by good old Yoko Taro, man who likes to do interviews wearing like the weird fucking mask. And his games are extremely fucking dark and sad. And I was like, you know what? I want to try playing these games because, one, my FF14 brain rot playing the Nier raids went, man, this music was really fucking good. Because they brought tracks from the Nier games into. And after some recommendations of friends, I really gave it a shot. Because I did actually play a bit of Nier Automata when it was on Game Pass, but it wasn't really clicking with me at the time. I just didn't have like the right approach to the game, and it just didn't really click with me in the right ways. But later on, I eventually went and played Nier Replicant, which is a prequel to Nier Automata by thousands and thousands of years, but you know, they're both Nier games. But I played through that, and I'm not gonna say it fucking changed my life like other people say about the Nier games, but it's a game that really makes you think, and the more time you put into it in the story, the more you get out of it, and the more you just kind of have to think. Like, it gave me a lot to think about with just kind of like, I would say more like, I guess, philosophical topics, specifically more of Automata than Replicant. But Replicant's story kind of really, as you play through it, it's a game that repeat playthroughs kind of recontextualize your actions. And while, like, on playthrough A, you're going through killing all these monsters, you know, trying to save your character's sister, on, like, repeat runs, the morality of what you're doing starts to become more and more gray. And more of, like, there's just a lot more layers that you're not really, like, told on, like, your first playthrough. So these are games that you definitely have to kind of put some like preconceived notations out, or preconceived notions, because they can get very weird, very dark, and very depressing. Like, they're not lying when they say these games are fucking dark. especially doing like side quests, because like there's a few side quests where people just fucking end up dead at the end of them. It's like, oh, this guy's like teaching you how to fish and whatnot, and then when you're after you're done with like the last quest, you have to get something for him, but you come back and he's not there anymore, and there's someone else standing in his place. Like, yeah, this guy that's been like kind of mentoring you through this, he's no longer here anymore. And there's just a lot of really moments like that that you kind of miss if you don't just go along the beat. If you stick only to the beaten path, you miss a lot in Replicant and Automata. Um, and then the lastly thing I want to kind of talk about is just the music in these. Um, People really gush about the music in the Nier games because they're just very like good music pieces, and a lot of the compositions themselves add a lot to the story and what's going on. Um, like with Near Replicant, there's a song called "Song of the Ancients," which is a song that plays in like your home village, sung by like a character that is really close, almost like a mother figure to your main character. So it has like a comforting, homey feel when you hear it, but the song gets used later in the game with like a major story moment that makes you think a lot differently about the song because of what's going on, and stuff like that just really adds to it for me. um and what was I going with this? So a lot of the music also, like if there's like vocal tracks, they're actually using like this made up language called like chaos language, which is kind of an amalgamation of a lot of different like languages, like modern languages, because this game takes place so far in the future. It's like like English that we're speaking right now is basically ancient tongue to them. So it's like over time, a lot of these kind of mishmashed into this like amalgamation, and kind of what you get more out of the songs are just like the emotional impact and whatnot, and like the feelings of like the singer. I think a lot of those really like kind of help with the tone of these games. Um, but yeah, it's a series that it's hard to recommend some people because they have a lot of like very anime-ish moments to them, and there's also just weird shit because Yoko Taro, he's kind of infamous for making, very weird games and such. But it's a series that I'm definitely glad I've played, even if they're I wouldn't call them like the best things to ever be made, but they're games that really leave you a lot to think about after like you've beaten them.
Yeah, it's
I will say, I'll jump in on this. Is when it comes to like fans of Nier, I kind of treat it as like it's a potential red flag if someone is really into Nier. Um, Robert is not a. Thankfully, though, Robert is not a red flag.
I don't know. Have you talked to him a lot?
Also,
I'm joking.
I feel like I do. But like, in all seriousness, though, I do think like, although it's a series that I haven't really had much interest in getting in myself, even though I do have friends that have urged me to, and nothing is permanent. I used to think I always would hate AC Unity, but I actually kind of like it a little. But
I'm vibrating in my chair.
Anyway.
But like going back to Nier series, it's such an interesting like you talk about like creative visionaries and directors of like who those people are whenever they like you feel you feel their stamp on a game. Obviously, go-to is like Hideo Kojima. People would say nowadays Sam Lake with Alan Wake and the Control stuff, the series. But you could definitely feel Yoko Taro, right? Sorry, I want to
Yes.
make sure I'm pronouncing that right. Yoko Taro, you definitely can feel whenever it's his voice and it's his game that he's putting out. Whether it's this or whether it's Jesus, if you want to talk about dark, there's Drakengard. Jesus Christ.
That's a can of worms I've not even looked into.
Drakengard actually is a red flag. If you play Drakengard and like that, you are a red flag. You need to see help. But Drew's laughing, but he has no idea. But like, in all honesty, like the Nier series is something that I've appreciated from afar, whether it's like Replicant or Gestalt or like Automata, especially Automata. I hear so much good things come about that. And I'm sorry, Robert, I don't know if I caught that. Did you say that you had just played Nier Remnant, or like had you also played Automata?
Replicant. I played
Replicant.
both.
Sorry.
I
Uh,
started with Automata, and then I didn't like it, so I dropped it. Then I played Replicant when it came out, like the version 1.2 to whatever numbers,
mhm.
um, which is a remake or remaster, I guess, of the original Nier. Which in Japan it was Nier Gestalt and Nier Replicant, but we only got Gestalt, but they just called it Nier, and you
Right.
play as dad instead of the brother.
Dad Nier.
Your father Nier and brother Nier.
But yeah, like
I like Gestonk.
the Nier series is so complicated to talk
It
about.
is.
It's one of those series where, admittedly, Robert, it's more fun to me to watch video essays than to actually play it.
Yeah.
Um,
The
because
gameplay
because
of the original one I heard's really rough. Platinum Games helped work on Replicant, and that apparently helped a lot.
oh yeah, I from what I heard, and I think a lot of that is because you got the marriage of those like studios in Automata that really helped it.
Mhm.
It like the world and just general like themes that it goes for is very interesting. And from what I know, what who people who have played this game and talked about it extensively, I believe it's a you know, you said like, you know, you're not one of those people that say it's life changing, and I completely understand that. I would also probably be one of those people where I play this game. It's like, yeah, it's not life changing for me, but I will say that there must be a reason why these games resonate so much, and I think it's because, and I think that's kind of what we've talked about before, Robert, is that sometimes with a game, and you miss this sometimes with like the AAA type style games, is when it does have a focus, like story or message that that's coming from like a singular creative vision, it can really help make the themes of that story resonate with its audience strongly. Yeah, Nier may not have the biggest audience out there compared to other JRPGs or to other action games. It may not have the biggest audience, but what it does have is a very dedicated base, and I think we need to acknowledge it. Like, it exists for a reason, and I Nier is a series that I have always appreciated from afar. So, Robert, thank you for taking the dive into that series. It sounds like out is fun still the right word to describe Nier what you
I would.
experienced?
I had fun playing the games. Like the gameplay themselves was pretty good. I think I had more
Okay.
fun playing Automata because with Replicant, I'll say this about Replicant: it gets better through replays, but the problem is that the replays they don't change a ton gameplay wise. So you're kind of going through the same like motions after playthrough A. Where when you do playthrough B, it picks up on the second half of the game, and then you basically play through the second half of the game about 4 or 5 times,
Is
and things
That's
change with
asking
the
a lot.
cutscene. Yeah, it's short. Like it'll take you like maybe 4 or 5 hours, but it kind of drains on you as you do it. So it's something that's like you want to take a break with, but you don't want to take too much of a break because you might like miss something important. Because generally, what it does is it recontextualizes some like a boss fight or two or some other story bits, like with new cutscenes, new dialogue, that really can change a lot. But thankfully, Automata doesn't do it nearly as bad. Like, yeah, you replay through the game, but you play it as a different character, and they like you go from 2B in your first playthrough to 9S in your second, and 9S has different like moments away from 2B, and his gameplay style is different enough to where it doesn't feel like you're just kind of rehashing the same thing over and over.
Right, because he's more like a hacker type
Yeah.
person
Because
in
Yoko
that.
Taro wanted to make a space shooter, but no one wanted to fund a space shooter, so he made an action game.
That sounds like him. That definitely
That's
sounds like him.
basically what it is.
Um, but yeah, like I really wish I could add on more with Nier. I all I have to say is like I do like when you guys, and I don't mean you, Robert. I'm just meaning just the fan base in general. When you guys aren't being insufferable like little shits about this game, Nier is fascinating and it is amazing. Like all the kinds of like content that people are able to put out about it, just like talking about its story and themes. I feel like that's the thing that most people resonate the most with. That and the gratuitous amount of 2B porn out there is just crazy, bro. It's just it's
What
just
most people
fucking
probably know 2B about is the porn.
it's just like they don't even
They're
know
not
her
really
name is
into that.
2B. They're just like, hey, it's that blindfolded chick again.
It's the blindfolded chick with a big ass.
A great ass.
Hey,
We
man.
can Drew, can you like put in the line from Al Pacino where he says that?
If I'm going back in the edit and I find this line, sure, I'll find that. I'll put it. But there's just as
I would just,
likelihood I go back through it and completely skip this part.
just like I cannot deal with this bullshit
I
right now.
just-
That's what Drew's thinking.
I'm
I
just
go
like,
through Nier,
I'm like,
so
do
you
I
don't
want
have
to do I want to acknowledge the request immediately after they made a reference directly to porn? Maybe. We'll see how I'm feeling on the day.
It's
Yeah.
research.
It's a reset.
But
Yeah. So that's
Okay.
about all I really had to say on Nier.
All right.
that's cool.
So, all right. So, moving on to best new game for me. Randy, you get to talk again.
I get to talk again.
You get to talk again because
boy.
guess what, buddy? It's your turn.
Is it Mass Effect again?
No, I mean maybe. I don't think
that
you
how
played
the
it this.
thing-
I don't think you
you wanna
discovered that
put
game
it
this
in?
year.
Your
That's
discovery game.
Yeah, I don't
It's
think.
my rediscovery.
I don't
no.
think.
No, actually,
It's a bit cheating, but yeah. What is it?
Yeah. No, so I have two, and I'm gonna go over them extremely quickly.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if this technically was in 2023, but it might have been the end of 2022. We'll say it's 2023.
Well, no, it'd be better if
I
it was
played
2022.
Dirt Rally. Yeah, well, I played Dirt Rally 2.0. So, it's a rally racing game. They actually just released its sequel this year. So I got it heavily discounted. But I'll eventually move on to its sequel here. I don't know, probably in a year from now.
Yeah.
So, who knows? Maybe 2024 it'll be EA's WRC Rally.
I mean,
that
2024
I'm
will be
talking
your.
about.
It'll also be your best new game. Who knows?
Yeah. So basically, if you're not familiar with the sport of rally, it's basically a time trial down a dirt trail. Basically, where you have a co-driver who's like calling out where you're going, and you're just trying to get there as quickly as possible. And it's really addictive to try and beat your time and stuff like that. It has really historic cars, whether it be from the Group B era, where things just were wildly unregulated, and you would just be like, it's got 4 wheels and a massive fucking engine. Safety? So,
Safety is just a suggestion.
Safety's for cowards.
basically. And you have, like I said, you have vehicles like that up until pretty modern stuff. I think up till when did that game come out? I think it came out like 2016. So, but yeah, it's just really addictive and fun to play. I know not really anyone else here really like play any sort of automotive or racing games,
Yeah.
but
Like Forza.
if you want to, if you want to kind of challenge yourself on something a little different, you can try it out.
Is it like is it more arcadey or simmy?
Definitely more sim, but even then it's not the most hardcore like sim there is for rally games. But I mean, it's definitely more sim. It's more sim than I'd say even like than Forza is and stuff like that. Forza at this point, especially like the Horizon series, is definitely arcade.
whatever
Or some
reason, I
people say
kind of got
Simcade, but like,
for some reason I got the idea that Dirt was more of like an arcade game.
no, there is okay. So there is Dirt. So there basically was an offshoot. So you had the original like Dirt 1 through I think 3 or 4, I think, and then there was a couple other ones like Dirt the Show or something like that, or Dirt Showdown or whatever. Um, and originally it had rally racing in it along with some other stuff. And they basically really wanted to focus in on making just like the rally portion of it, so they made it its own thing. And I think it's for the better for that because it's a really good game. But yeah, like I said, I'll go really quick about it because I have 2 games. So yeah, that was the biggest new to me, or like the other big kind of new to me was actually Control. I didn't play it until this year. My boyfriend Will was going off about it, and I remember when I started playing it, I really heavily invested in kind of the levitation powers, being able to like throw shit. And I think I started playing it like right after Jedi Survivor, which probably is the whole reason I did this. And I was just like, I have the Force, and he's like, you should really invest in like health or like some of your weapon damage. And I'm like, what's the point in that when I could just chuck shit with my mind and have
That's a good
unlimited
point.
ammo?
Yeah,
Well, I say unlimited ammo. You have unlimited ammo anyway. It's like a heat management in regards to like the actual weapons. But I thought the art direction and stuff was really unique. It's it's the same universe and same people that made Alan Wake 2, which just won for I think
A
direction.
bunch of shit.
A
A
lot
bunch
It
of
won
shit.
for a bunch of stuff that I think it earned. Like the
Best-
direction and stuff was really cool.
I
Well,
think it's
yeah.
narrative,
Just
direction,
Control.
and art direction.
Yeah, it's a lot of shit. It's basically
Yeah. But to answer your question, Robert, yeah, he did play Alan Wake 2 as well.
Okay.
But yeah, I played Control for the first time. It was just really fun. Like it's kind of like it's really trippy, and I remember there's like this one section called the maze that I don't know if anyone here is gonna go back and play Control, or who hasn't
I have
played it.
plans too.
I've-
I'm not.
I
I
have-
played like a little bit of it, but I of course I'm a big Alan Wake fan, and after beating Alan Wake 2, I definitely am interested in going back and playing
Okay.
through Control now.
I won't-
do wanna
won't
play
spoil
through it.
this,
I do
like,
want to play through it once
section.
at one point. Yeah.
But there's this section called the maze, and it is so fucking fun. It's kind of like a power fantasy, and I'll leave it at that. And it's really fun.
Okay.
Yeah, and they do a lot of cool things just in general in the game in regards to, I feel, like world building in general. I mean, I think that just goes for like the Alan Wake series, and this is like their world building's really cool. So that was the best in regards to new to me. There you go, short and sweet.
All right.
I am so happy like you're talking about Control because like it's I feel so bad that like I have not given Control the fair shake it deserves because like I've only played like a couple of hours of it and I really vibe with it. I just haven't been able to just for some reason just sit down and really sink my teeth into it, especially since I fuck with everything about it. Like the best way I described it to some of my friends, like with the first initial hours of playing it, is it's like SCP if you're really into that kind of stuff. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm not familiar.
So oh god, have you heard of like things like the back rooms and all that shit?
Backrooms. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yes, the back-
So that's all part of this thing called SCP, which is basically this like internet mythology stuff about like all this weird kind of stuff, secure, contain, protect. And SCP is like kind of like this organization that kind of goes around and rounds it up and documents all these like sort of paranormal type shit. And the internet gets really into it, so they're like they throw things like Slenderman is like part of the SCP universe and all this kind of wacky shit. And I feel like the vibe of those kinds of like forums and like telling those kinds of stories bleeds over very well into Control, which is all about like the weird supernatural stuff going on. Control likes to do one of my favorite tropes in a video game is it likes to lead you down a hallway and you turn around and you're somewhere suddenly completely different. It loves to fuck with your like sense of time and space. And I really like that about like Control. Obviously, it's tied to the Alan Wake universe, so I appreciate that. Control is just fun and interesting to me because it's just a weird world. Everything is weird. Jessie, the main character, is weird.
Yeah.
She's very weird in a good way, and I should point out, in a very good way, she's weird. So yeah, like I want to give Control like a fair shake, especially since Alan Wake 2 definitely talks a lot more about Control, but as a person who's not actually been able to play all the way through it, it didn't really mess with the story that bad at all. If anything, it does make me a little bit more intrigued about this little corner of the universe. But yeah, I definitely want to give Control a shot because like just the atmosphere and the powers and the general vibe of it just speaks to me personally.
All right.
Yeah, it's definitely fun. You should definitely give it a shot.
Well,
Give it the time.
and that leads us to our final big new game for us. And Seth, it's your turn.
Yes. Cool.
What was the brand new game that wasn't new to this game but new to you?
So I'm gonna do something a little different because it's not a game. It's a system. For me, that's like the best thing that's new to me. I'm gonna talk about the Steam Deck.
Let's go.
So Steam Deck came out in, I believe, for the general audience, for like the rest of us normies, in like 2022. I think, Robert, that's when you picked up yours, right?
Yeah, December.
Gotcha. So admittedly, I'd been like interested in it because like, oh, it's really neat. Like it's like a PC but handheld, and I've always kind of like been wanting that handheld console. But for a while, like the Nintendo Switch was kind of sating that. But to be honest, like the Switch's hardware is definitely starting to show its age. And it's just the it can only run so many games and run them so well as it can. So I decided to like at the start of 2023, I had some extra dosh, and I decided to be like, you know what? I am going to revitalize my dormant Steam library and pick up a Steam Deck. And I did, and I gotta say, it has completely changed how I approach and play games now. The Steam Deck kind of feels like this. I hate to use this word, but it's like the perfect in between a console / handheld gaming experience and PC gaming. You kind of get the best of both worlds because you're running this system that's running on Linux, which is, once you know how to work with Linux, and there's a big online community around that. They will help you get familiar with Linux. Once you know how to run it, you can kind of turn the Steam Deck into whatever the fuck you want it to be.
There's people who literally use the Steam Deck as both their work computer and their gaming thing.
It's insane. I think those people are crazy awesome. But like, how do I put this? Like, the flexibility that you get with PC gaming, you get with the Steam Deck. Like, you're able to like tweak the options of like how you want your game to play and run. And like, yeah, a lot of times, like especially newer releases, you might have to tweak the options to be on the lower end to make it work. But it's so worth it to just have the convenience of taking it with you to play somewhere, where it's just like, I could take it outside, I could take it indoors, I could take it to a coffee shop, I could take it to a library, wherever the fuck I want to play this thing, I can go there and play it. I can play it during my break times at work. And it's just so much fun. And like, there is a thing with Steam Deck where there's 3 statuses on like Steam's store that kind of talks about if it can run on the Steam Deck. Verified means There's not much, if any, tweaking at all you have to do. You just download it and you can pretty much play the game, quote unquote, out of the box. If it's verified, it'll run on your Steam Deck. Playable is it will run on the Steam Deck, but there might be a couple weird things with it that maybe not work so properly. Like maybe text looks weird because it's smaller on a screen, those kinds of things. And then there's unplayable. I want to talk about the unplayable thing. Unplayable is bullshit.
It's only a suggestion.
It's only a suggestion. I will say this much. Theoretically, you can play anything on the Steam Deck. It's just how far you're willing to go to make it work. Because sometimes there is some crazy bullshit you have to do to get it to work. But whenever you can, oh my God, it's so fun. Like, one thing I've kind of talked about a couple of times on this podcast is a game I've been playing through called Thief or Thief Gold. Came out in the 90s. Turns out Thief, because it was made in the 90s, was not meant to run on modern PC hardware, so it just fucking dies. Thankfully, there's a big active community out there, the modern community, that has put out a thing called T-Fix or Thiefix that really helps make it run on modern systems and actually makes it look a little better and run better. It's so fun. But admittedly, I had to do a good 4 hours of tinkering to get it to work on my Steam Deck, but I did it. I got the game to work, and I'm playing it, and it's fun. Like I said, there's just so much flexibility, and just with the and even outside of Linux itself, Steam does a really good job of messing around with the user interface to make it so that like you have a lot of control over how you play your game. Like even games that didn't really have like controller support, you can download community like controller layouts so that like they map it to certain buttons, certain keys and stuff like that to make it work. Or you can kind of build your own up, or you could take one of those layouts and tweak it around. You can really just make this system work however you want. It's such a fun, customizable experience. And I love it because it allows me to play in sort of like bite-sized chunks the games I want to like really like plink away at. Like earlier this year, I played a lot of like Pizza Tower. I played a lot of Ultra Kill on that, working on those games. It's just such a good system. If you're looking for like a handheld game system, I highly recommend the Steam Deck. What I also appreciate going forward in the handheld market is I'm hoping Steam this year already released another version of the Steam Deck, which is like basically a Steam OLED, which is cool. I'm down for that. I'm not gonna buy a new one just for that, but it's cool that it's out there.
If you
But
don't
like,
have a Steam Deck, it's a great way. It's a great place to start with the Steam Deck, since you get a nicer screen. It's a little bit larger, colors a little more vibrant. The battery life is a little bit better, and the screen has a higher refresh rate, so you can run stuff at like 90 frames per second instead of 60.
that's awesome. That's
Also
actually
more
really
memory.
cool. And more memory's key, man. Definitely, if you get a Steam Deck, I also highly recommend getting a micro SD card to go along with it.
That's what we all my emulators on.
But yeah, like I love this thing. Like I said, it completely changes the way I play games because now I do kind of like think about, should I pick up like a game on Xbox or PlayStation, or maybe I want to take it on the go and play it on the Steam Deck. There's even times where it's a game that I technically already own through Game Pass, but I go ahead and buy it on Steam so like I can play it on the deck because I think it's better. I have Vampire Survivors on the Steam Deck, and it's so fun to play it on there, like when I'm lying in bed or whatever. It's such a fun, unique kind of like just gaming experience that brings all the flexibility of like the PC gaming experience into this little device. If there's one thing I can critique is that it does take maybe a minute to get used to some of its interface elements. It's a bit on the heavier side. Definitely don't go in expecting this thing to be like a Switch.
Yeah, the OLED fixes that a little bit. It's a little bit lighter, a little bit smaller. But
That's
yeah.
cool. But it's but yeah, like it's such a fun thing. And not only that, when you get to play on PC, it really does open up a whole new wealth of games to try out, both new and old, indie and AAA. That sorry, this is starting to become PC Master Race shit. Uh, but like, it's so much fun that like you can have like all these like options like ready for you to just play all these different games. So yeah, like that is my quote unquote new to me is the Steam Deck. I highly recommend it, and I look if you're looking for like a solid handheld like experience where you can have like a ton of options for games and you want a lot of customization, the Steam Deck is it. It absolutely is. I'm hoping that maybe with the success of the Steam Deck, we start to see, and we're already seeing it with like other companies coming out with their own versions, like the ROG Ally and all that stuff. And that stuff is cool. Maybe not quite for me, but it's cool. Like there's definitely seems to be the Steam Deck's arrival is definitely seemed to be fueling a almost arms race of like who can make the best handheld and cost effective handheld on the market now. And I'm hoping to God this could also be a kick in the rear to Nintendo to fucking do something with the Switch. Like make like a Switch Pro or
Switch
do the
2.
Switch 2, do the
Switch
Switch 2 cuz like that thing is quickly becoming a dinosaur. It kind of already is.
You can
Yes.
emulate stuff on Steam Deck and have it run better than on Switch.
Yeah, like
I
Metroid
shit you
Prime.
not.
Yeah, like Metroid Prime. So yeah, that's my quote unquote, I guess,
All right.
new to me
New to
game.
you. All right. Well, thank y'all for sharing.